Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Library Talk and Everything Else. I'm your host, DJ JC. Hopefully everybody's doing well this Thursday morning. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. So, there's no technical issues, but we're back on track. I think we've got it going on. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our show. So, I'm very excited because we also have a guest this week. We had a guest last week. And last week's guest, Mr. Jesus Rosens, is one of our librarians. We spoke about financial literacy and financial planning, and it was a wonderful conversation. Once it gets uploaded, please continue to check Vaquero Radio off of YouTube, and you can listen to all our shows thus far. But I'm really excited today because we have another guest. We have Mrs. Catherine Autry, who is joining us in the studio this morning. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
Yes. Okay. Why are you here? So,
you asked.
Yes. So one of the things that we like to do in every show is we want to ask a research question. And if you've been listening from the very first episode, we try to answer a question that, is research-based. But if we don't answer it, that's fine. It's just a conversation piece. It's kind of something that gets us going, something that we can use to kind of guide the show. So today's research question is going to be, what resources do students have when it comes to career opportunities? And that's what we're going to talk about today. That's going to be the focus of our show today. Is going to be careers. Kathy, you are the project director of Project Stream. Is that correct? Or maybe your proper title, because I think that might be a little bit confusing.
Currently, I am the director of Project Stream, and it's a federal government program that we were awarded at University of Texas Permian Basin. It's a 5-year program of $3 million where we are trying to find students to fulfill the teacher shortage in Texas, mainly West Texas. So, but my background is pretty wide variety of things, and so I think this is right up my alley because HR is also near and dear to me.
So we want to talk about that. We want to talk about the career paths that we have taken to lead us to this point. And if you are listening as a first-time listener, thank you so much. If you're, a student, if you are retired, as some people that are listening are, if you are retired, you've already made your career. Yeah, exactly. You already made your career choices. But if you are a young student that's thinking about what is it that I'm going to do, because I think that's one of the things that college does for us is it gives us options. It gives us opportunities, because I think we all sort of have an idea, or maybe we don't, when we're starting school, like, oh, you know what? This is what I've been wanting to do since I was young. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to, study this and that. And then we start college and it takes us a different route.
Well, we start from a young age. Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yes, and we start being asked that.
We start talking about that. We start figuring out, we have our parents that are guiding us, and we want to be an astronaut.
Yes.
We want to be a doctor. We want to be a veterinary. I don't think anyone ever, as a young kid, ever says, I want to be a phlebotomist.
Or a librarian. No, I take it back. Librarian is something that a lot of people think about. But,
Is it though?
It is. So we have, these plans. We start thinking these plans when we're young. And I'll give you my career path, the way that I kind of got to where I'm at. I wanted to, since eighth grade, by 8th grade year in middle school, I wanted to be a priest, a Catholic priest. And throughout high school, that was my plan. I wanted to be a priest. Then I graduated from high school. And the gift from my parents to me for my graduation was a bulldog, And we had pets before, but we had never really, I guess, taking care of our pets via going to a veterinarian. So I get this dog as a high school graduation present, and we take this dog to the vet. I've never walked into a veterinarian's office. We take this dog to a veterinarian's office, and my mind was blown, like, wow, so this is what they do here. Honestly, I was just so intrigued by what they were doing there.
Wait, so you received a pet.
Yes.
Didn't know how to take care of it.
Yes.
And now you're trying to. So were they testing you to have what kind of responsibilities you were going to have?
I guess maybe that, or just we were really going to take care of this dog who was a little expensive, more expensive than the pets we'd had in the past. So we're really going to take care of this pet. And we're going to take care of this dog. So we go to the veterinarian's office. And again, never been to the veterinarian's office. I know what they do. I know they take care of animals. So you saw
all these animals, cats and dogs.
Yes. And actually the veterinarians that we went to, his specialty was horses, and livestock. And so it was so intriguing to me that I was like, you know what? That summer of my freshman year, going into college, I'm like, you know what? The priesthood is still there, but I'm kind of leaning towards veterinary science. But then I took my first biology
class. Did you pray along the way?
Yeah,
I
did. I thought, you know what? This is really going to guide me. And so I started college. My very first biology class, I was like, this is not for me. So changed directions. But one of the things that I did in high school, I was in a lot of public speaking type activities. So I wanted to do something that dealt with that. I wanted to do something, but at the time I didn't want to be a teacher. I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. But as I started college, I was like, wow, these professors and these massive classes, and I could see myself perhaps doing that at some point. And then, life kind of takes different directions and you go different ways and different routes. And so I ended up becoming a teacher. I did become a teacher.
Wait, let's back up a little bit.
Yes.
Did you work at all in high school?
I did not work in high school.
Oh, so
I did
you
not
didn't
have a job in high
the
school.
privilege of going to school in high school and working.
No, I didn't.
So you had no clue.
No clue. My friends were working at grocery stores. My friends were working at the mall. I didn't work, honestly. And so the only thing I did, the only job that I had was my friend Louie and I had a DJ business with one speaker and some cassettes. So my friend Louie and I'm Joel, he's Louie, so we called ourselves the JNL Project. And so that was the only type of job that I had, was doing these little get-togethers, these parties, these little dances.
So you were a DJ, actually, the cassettes back when you had to record and fast forward,
yes,
record and
fast
forward.
That.
You didn't actually have the minutes displayed.
No. And CD players were still a little out of our reach, so we were playing cassettes, and so we had to cue them perfectly. And I mean, we had a couple of gigs, nothing spectacular, but that was the only exposure to money or finances that I had. We got paid.
Really?
We got paid $20 a gig, which was a lot of money back then, and split it amongst two people. So it really wasn't too much.
So it was $10 each.
That was it. So other jobs, no. So I start college.
What was your first job?
My first job was as a work study for the University of Texas at Bronzeville. And it was as a receptionist assistant. And yes, so that was my first job. And then that summer, I didn't work anymore because the funds ran out. So then in the fall of 1995 was when I started working at the library. And I started working at the library as a part-time employee, left to become a teacher, which was great. And then I came back to the university to become a librarian in 2005. So again, my plans to become a priest, veterinarian, those didn't go through, but I took a different route, and I am glad for the route that I took. And now we're here.
So you became an educator. What made you become an educator?
I have education in my family.
Okay.
I have education in my family. My father was a principal. My mother worked at a school. My wife is a librarian as well. My brother's a teacher. So education has always been a part of me. And I am so glad, honestly, that I took that route to become a teacher. It opened up new opportunities for me, met some wonderful teachers. And you mentioned something earlier. You mentioned that you were out to recruit teachers because it is a profession that I feel a lot of people are leaving, and you see these videos that they're posting on social media where mass exodus of educators and teachers. But it is a wonderful profession. Now, I know the times have changed from when I was a teacher, but the act of teaching, the what you get out of that is wonderful.
It's funny because social media is so prevalent, and I know you had a topic about social media.
Yes.
However, it's we now have that media standpoint of the teaching profession is dying. But remember when we were growing up, the health profession was dying.
Yes.
So it goes in cyclical waves. Right now, because we have so many students, we're heavily populated. People don't want to become a teacher because students spent their lives in a classroom. Why would I want to be a teacher? I know what I was like as a student. But then you start thinking about, you pay it forward, you start really honing in on the skills that you have. You start taking these classes at the university that help you with the soft skills.
Yes.
And then you realize, you know what? I can work 188 days a year.
Yes.
I can be off in the summers. I can be off in the winter breaks and spring break and, 1-2 days off a month because, professional development days.
Spring break.
Spring break. You start thinking about, wow, you look at the pay, but then unless you're a trust fund baby, I mean, you kind of have to work, right?
Yes.
So why not look at a profession that is going to be rewarding at the end? I was also in education. I still am.
And I want to touch on that because you have had a variety of, jobs. You went to the military, you were in the military, you were in the Air Force, you worked for oil and gas, you worked K through 12, and now you work higher ed. And so you've gone through a variety. It sounds like it is. So you've taken, various routes in your life as well, in your careers. And so, going back to what you were talking about, education, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. My family is in education.
Mm-hmm.
My father, like I said, was a principal. And so when we think about, and I don't like to think that the profession is dying because it isn't, and we become teachers because, again, perhaps we're not going to get rich off of it, but it is that idea of paying it forward and giving back. And honestly, in a classroom, when you see that student and you know that they are learning and you know that you're a part of it, it's amazing. It really is.
Well, you kind of said something right now that just kind of triggered me a little bit. You said you're not going to get rich off being a teacher. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Okay.
Because it depends on where in Texas you live.
That is true.
Where they will actually, your first pay could be anywhere up to $60,000 to $75,000 a year.
You're right.
As a first-year teacher, because we do have a teacher shortage. School districts are offering housing, they're offering daycare, they're offering you basically the world to teach our future generations. So it just depends on what you mean by rich.
That is true, and you are correct. I have friends.
That's good to know.
That I have friends that are educators right now, and they're like, oh, you know what, this profession and this. But no, we really should look at it as, something that we're giving back to our communities, to this future generation of students. What are the top 3 reasons we become teachers? June, July, and August. I'm just kidding.
That's right. Yes, countdown.
So yeah, June, July, and August, the summer break. And so, hopefully I didn't reveal too much there. But, and we become educators for a variety of reasons. And you're right, there is growth. You can go into administration. You can go into various routes within education. But I think a lot of students, like you said, are looking at it as like, man, I can't be in a classroom with 30, 25 me's in that classroom, what I was like. And so it is a very special person that goes into education and decides that they want to become teachers. So what were your career goals growing up? I kind of talked a little bit about, me wanting to become a priest and all of these different things and kind of changing routes and directions. But what was it that you wanted to do?
Oddly enough, I wanted to become a doctor.
Okay.
I didn't know of what kind, but I wanted to go in the healthcare. And that was as a young age. And it was funny because when we started talking about, the show, I never really thought about what I wanted to be because, things change along the way. I had a couple of jobs while I worked in high school.
Okay.
So I actually went to high school, had 2 jobs. I worked at McDonald's and I worked at IHOP. I was a hostess and then I worked the drive-thru at McDonald's. I took a different pathway. I had scholarships going to college and I was accepted into various colleges, but I decided to go in the military. And during the time, it was during Persian Gulf War. And so, oddly enough, I wanted to become a Marine. My mom said no, flat out just said no. At the time, I didn't want to go in the Army because my dad was in the Army. And so I didn't want to go in the Navy because I had to cut my hair.
Okay.
I know, right? Superficial. And then I joined the Air Force. And so that was basically my first launch of my career. So I was a TMO specialist. Military loves acronyms.
Mm-hmm.
TMO is Traffic Management Office.
Okay.
And I had 7 parts to my job. So the main part was working on a tarmac, airport runway, helping and freight and cargo and driving forklifts. And here's an 18-year-old, right, driving a forklift and didn't even really drive that well a vehicle, let alone a forklift.
For the government.
For the government, yes. Oh. And, you have that fork in the road. Like, what do you want to do?
Yes.
So I got out and then I went back home and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I started community college. My life kind of took a spin. It took me 8 years to get a 2-year degree. I wanted to go in the healthcare route, but then I took classes and then I had to give myself a shot and I freaked out and I said, I can't do that. I can't give myself a shot, let alone a patient.
Okay.
So I didn't have that bedside manner of hold still, let me give you a shot, let me fill you with medicine, that sort of thing. And I changed my community college degrees. I actually wanted to be a biochemical engineer. Yeah, that didn't happen.
Okay.
That was too many classes and I was ready to get out.
Yes.
I didn't have an advisor or a mentor, so I probably would have, graduated within 2 years in a 2-year college. Once I actually got my 2-year degree, I moved forward and finished my 2 years to get my bachelor's. And then I had a family along the way during I was going to school and working full time. And at that point, I started as a file clerk at an oil and gas company.
Okay. And
doesn't sound luxurious, and it's not, but files don't talk back.
Mm-hmm. They're not going to be rude.
They're not going to be rude. Speaking of being rude, I started the HR world.
Oh, that's a totally different thing.
It's a different segue.
Yes.
But I started in human resources, and I really liked it. I like the people. I like the hiring. I like the interviewing component. It's always different when you're interviewing on the other side of what the company wants rather than being that person of your interviewing. And I really liked it. When I went from a file clerk, I spent 10 years at an oil and gas company. And because it's oil and gas, it's very cyclical. And so I wind up getting laid off. But I became at the end, a global training development specialist.
Within that same company?
Within the same company. And my mentor, my boss at the time, saw value in what I was doing because I had the human resources component. And basically, I helped engineers who were freshly from colleges get their footing in different companies or different regions. So if you had a Canadian engineer that needed a different product line, I would move them over to Asia Pacific because that's the skill set that they needed. So it was pretty cool. And again, being laid off, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do next.
Yeah. And so you're holding a degree, though. You're holding what, an associate's degree?
No, a bachelor's degree.
A bachelor's degree at this point. Okay.
Yes. So I went into the education field.
Okay.
So from there, I was the assistant HR director for the 3rd largest school district and loved it. But then I realized education system's a little broken, right? Like most systems.
Yes.
And so I did that for a number of years and ventured out into the classroom. And I became a Spanish teacher. I was offered a job to become a Spanish teacher. But when you look at me, you're like, you don't look Mexican.
I'm not going to say anything.
I have a twang.
I'm not going to say anything.
But I declined the job because I would be a traveling Spanish teacher. I had 3 classrooms in 8 periods, and it just wasn't it wasn't what I wanted.
And again, there are reasons why we don't pursue that or continue with it.
Yeah.
I've known some wonderful educators that have been placed in that situation as well, where they don't want to be these, what they call floating teachers.
Yes.
And, it's part of the job, I know. And even here at the university, these people float around all the time. They don't have a continuous classroom, but it's a little different in a school setting. So I can understand that, because you want that classroom. You want to have that, that's your base, that's your home, that's where the students feel comfortable. And when you're moving all over the place. So we go different routes for different reasons. And how long were you doing that for?
Being a Spanish teacher?
Yes.
Oh, not very long. Less than a year.
Oh, okay.
Less than a year. And
Okay.
then I decided I wanted to go in the actual school setting itself.
Okay.
So I was overqualified as a book room clerk.
Oh.
So I was a paraprofessional, which hats off to paraprofessionals because
Yes.
they deal with a lot.
Yes. My mother was a paraprofessional. So
Oh, really?
yes,
Great.
Yes.
And so I was a paraprofessional, and then I worked my way up, and I was in the college and career at a high school, and I loved it. And I still keep in contact with some of my students. I'm not that old, but some of them are getting married, and they have kids now, and yeah.
And I think that's what it's about. It's those connections that you make, those people's lives that you touch, and I guess in a sense that reach out to you later.
Mm-hmm.
I have been a librarian for several years now, and at a restaurant not too long ago, a student who was the waiter, he remembered me from doing an instruction session from back in the day, back in the UTB days. So, you don't really know how much of an impression you make on these students and wherever you serve, I think, wherever you serve. And you have this, ability to go out there and do what you like. And I think that's one of the things that I don't know if it's a problem, and I wouldn't consider it an issue, but one of the things that I've noticed, and even when I was in school, and this was several years ago, it was that push for college. Do you have your paperwork ready for college? There are school districts now that, they promote themselves as, by the time the school year's over, 100%, college ready, and all these different things. But is college for everybody?
No, not at all.
It isn't. And one of
No.
the things that I think we neglect a lot of times is the promotion of vocational training, vocational schools.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something earlier. You've been sitting in this classroom for 12 years, 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Students may not be ready to go back to school, to college. They may not be ready to, start up another 4 years, 5 years. Sometimes gap years, are important.
Well, you know what? My son took a couple of gap years, and that's okay. I mean, you think about it. You're in school for 13 years because,
Yes.
you think of kindergarten. So you're in school for 13 years. You're burnt out.
Yes.
I mean, even when you go to college and you get a 4-year degree, you're burnt out because of all these classes you have to take. So he took a gap year, and one of the requirements was you have to work during that gap year. You're not
Okay.
just going to sit at home on a couch and do nothing. Like, you're going to work and be an actual adult. So he worked and then realized, he missed it going back to school. So my husband and I, we were able to find him a scholarship
Okay.
doing esports.
Oh, okay.
So he did gaming as a scholarship at Schreiner University.
Oh, wow.
There's many universities that have esports scholarships, but
What used to be once you wasted your time playing video games.
yeah, yes, and that's still sort of the caveat. Oh, you're on your phone too much, or
Yes.
you're on your video games, but there's careers out there. I mean, how do you make
Yeah,
those?
who develops these?
Who develops them, right?
Yeah.
And so, my son, he took a gap year, and he's now going to graduate in December, with a bachelor's degree. But some students have a different pathway. Our culture is that you have to work. And now the mindset is you have to go to college.
Yes.
You have to go to college and be a member of society in some form or fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But not everyone is ready.
No. I know students that right after high school, they had jobs lined up in the oil industry, and they're making really good money. And then thought, what, this is backbreaking work. This is hard. So they've come back to school. And yes, maybe they were making really great money when they were young, but now they've thought, hey, you know what? As I get older, I want to think about my future. I'm planning a family. I need some more, something more steady. And you come back to college. Mm-hmm. But I think.
And there's programs out there
yes.
for people, for students, for vocational. Like there's a TRIO program.
Yes.
And it's federally granted, where they will help you and guide you into the pathway of, your low income, and you're trying to get those programs up and going and trying to get you successful in vocational settings. But, let's kind of bring that down a little bit.
Sure.
So I have a friend that I went to elementary and middle school, and he never went to college.
Okay.
And he's an entrepreneur.
Yes, that happens too.
Yes, and he owns his own event center, and he's pushing his son to go to college, and I'm helping him with the scholarships and that sort of thing. But, some people they just have that knack for the business.
Yes.
If anything, I encourage you to go to college or, some type of schooling, because when you own your own business, you don't want someone to rob you.
Yes.
You need to know the basics. You need to understand where the money's coming in, where the money's going out, how to balance your checkbook. I mean, yes, you can learn and you can have street smart, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of technical aspects that if you don't know how to run a business correctly, you're going to go bankrupt within a year. I mean, look at all these brick and mortars that, you try to have a business and then all of a sudden business is gone.
Yes.
Or there's an empty, you fled the area because there's an empty building because you can't pay your rent.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's that component to it as well.
I want to continue this conversation because you mentioned TRIO and you mentioned other programs that are out there. And that research question initially was, what are some of the resources that are out there to help people, either start thinking about a career, start thinking about what they want to do. And there are so many things, right? I mean, never growing up did I think I was going to be a librarian. It's like, what is that? And so I want to discuss that. I want to look at that a little closer. Okay, so we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a bit. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. All right, thank you so much. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else. I believe there may have been some issues with the music. So we're listening to Kenny Chesney, but then Michael Jackson came on. I have no idea why. So we're back, and we're sitting here with Mrs. Catherine Autry, discussing careers, talking about careers and talking about where we want to go with our careers, because we can still continue with our careers even if we are at any age. So we're going to take a look at that a little closer.
So I have to say, I'm a Kenny Chesney fan.
Oh, okay.
And I think you're a Michael Jackson fan.
I am.
So I think it was a cross between
Both of those.
Cross-pollination between Kenny and Michael.
Both of those, right?
So
It happens.
No.
Okay, so we're going to continue our conversation here. I think we may be having some technical issues, but we're going to try to get back online here. If you cannot hear anything, you can always listen to us via our YouTube channel, Vaquero Radio.
To our topic, I had mentioned that I wanted to become a doctor. And so fast forward, I got my master's degree. And started my classes in 2017. And so I earned my MBA.
Oh, okay.
And so I went ahead and, I took these classes and I wanted to further my education. Lo and behold, I'm actually about to become a doctor.
Well, congratulations.
In education.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You mentioned that from a young age you wanted to be a doctor.
Who would have thought?
It ended up happening for you.
Who would have thought?
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. My mom was an educator. She was a math teacher at a middle school. In middle school, I have a little sympathetic feel for middle schoolers because they're trying to figure out who they are. They're coming into their person.
Yes.
That sort of thing. Because high school, they're semi-adults ish.
And they think they know what they're ready for.
Well,
and
they
what
think,
they want.
Well, that's at the rightful age of 4. I mean, they know what they want at that time. But so this journey, it's taken me 5 years to finish my doctorate. And so who would have thought?
You're almost done.
I'm almost
That's great.
done.
Fantastic.
I'm ABD.
That's, congratulations. That's awesome. I mentioned right now, I don't know if you can hear it because, again, we're having some technical issues, but I mentioned careers even at our age,
Yes.
and I mean, middle age, and we're still possibly changing
What? You're middle
careers.
age?
Yes, I am. Possibly changing careers, and you think it's, I'm comfortable. I'm okay. I'm done. But, learning continues, education continues.
Yes.
And, careers are abound. And so let's take a step back. And we're looking at an 18-year-old that is starting college that has no idea what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
What, in your experience, in your past careers, in your, everything that you've gone through, you're staring at an 18-year-old that's sitting there and doesn't know what they want to do and is asking you for advice. What do you recommend to them, or what do you tell them? How do you advise them?
The biggest thing is make a decision. Make a decision. Your decision is an experience, whether it's good or bad. So apply. If you want to go work for FedEx, go apply. One thing, this generation that I've noticed is they don't want to take a chance. They don't want to take a risk. They get very comfortable. They get very complacent of what they want, or they want their parents to tell them what they want to do, and I love my kids. My kids do the same thing. Hey, Mom, I don't want to do this. What are your thoughts? Make a decision. Because you don't know what the opportunities are going to lead to a better future or to a brighter side of things. And if you don't like it, golden rule is before you quit a job, get a job. So don't quit if you don't have a job, because getting a job, you don't know how long it's going to take you. So make sure you have that job before you quit. But as an 18-year-old, go for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You fall on your face? Okay, well, you get back up and then you move on. That's the beauty of life, is just make a decision, make a choice, live the experiences. Because if you don't, and you don't apply to jobs, or if you don't go to career fairs, or if you don't go to areas that you want to look at, you're going to miss out on opportunities.
Speaking of job fairs, there's going to be a job fair here at UTRGV October 3rd and 4th, both on the Bronzo and Edinburgh campus. For more information, students can visit the Career Center or its website at utrgv.edu/career center. One of the things that I learned at an early age about these career fairs is to bring a resume.
Free swag.
But that too.
Free promotional items.
Exactly. from different entities, right? Oh, going back to that, you mentioned that. I did a career day not too long ago. And one thing that I was so excited to see was that, you had your representatives from the University of UTRGV and some of the other local community colleges. But one of the things that I saw that was different was that they had somebody from a trade school, from one of the welding schools. And that's great because, again, going back to that exposure of college. But when you promote something that maybe students weren't even thinking about or considering,
So let's talk about the trade school, because, for example, plumbers, right? So in order to become a master plumber, you actually have to go through training and education. I mean, there's different levels. We notice it when we're customers, when we actually call for a plumber. We get the apprentice or the journeyman.
Yes.
And that costs less rather than you get a master plumber or someone who owns their own plumbing service. I mean, then we're paying out the wazoo, right? Because they're licensed.
Yes, and that happens too, at least here in the Valley, with HVAC.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. That is such a big thing. I have a cousin who went through the HVAC program and he works more with the installation of the bigger units of HVAC, and he loves it, And again, and I know you said this earlier, no college, no formal education when it comes to schooling, like college level, But he had to go to some schooling to learn HVAC, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's living a comfortable life, and supporting his family, supporting himself. And so you're right. It's not necessarily, you have to go to college to be successful. You mentioned your friend that has a business and with little to no college experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, family as well that, are in law enforcement and are doing a wonderful life without any college. But I think college, what it gives you is that opportunity, and I say this, and I'll give you an example. I have a master's degree in library and information sciences, and my job, my degree allows me the opportunity, if I want to be a librarian at the public level, a school librarian at the university, at a museum. So it's opened up those opportunities for me.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to use it? Maybe not. I'm happy where I'm at, but that's what my education has allowed for me. Your education, you're getting ready to be, to have this doctorate degree.
Mm-hmm.
What are you planning on doing? What is it that you want to do with that degree?
Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Sorry.
I don't know, to be honest with you. My doctorate is in organizational leadership with a concentration in emerging technologies, and that's a mouthful. So, and I have a background in data analytics.
None of that stuff I
right?
understood.
Oh my gosh, big words. I'm
None of that stuff did I understand. No, I'm just kidding. No, go ahead, continue.
But basically, I kind of hone in on the skills that I've learned and that I like, and a lot of that has to do with data and just trying to mesh all that together. At the end of the day, I don't know what I want to do. I saw my family. My mom was a migrant worker. My family's came from migrant workers, and my mom, bless her heart, I mean, she's passed now, but she was an accountant for so many years. She was an educator, a math teacher. I never saw education in my field.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I did see, but I'm okay now. And I kind of feel bad for my kids because now I don't know what they look forward to.
Exactly.
Because you always want to one-up your parents, right?
Yes.
You always want to do better than what they gave you. Mm-hmm. With my mom, and I actually, one of my aunts, she has her PhD in education.
Okay.
And, I never in a million years thought I would go into getting my it's an EDD, but my doctorate. Never in a million years. So I look forward, I'm like, what are my kids going to do? I kind of hope they walk the similar footsteps, but then I don't know what pathway I give them.
Yeah, but it's their life, whatever's going to make them happy as well, too. Their experiences, their, whatever they're going to go through.
And I have 3 kids, and one is street smart, and one is intellectual, and one doesn't quite make those choices. So I'm hoping when my time is ready to retire, my experiences I pass on to them so that they can actually provide some insight into the world, and then my grandkids can see all the obstacles and trials and tribulations.
The trials and tribulations, right? That's what, yes.
Because we write that on every paper that we have.
Mm-hmm. What I went through, and one of the things I'll say this, I had a show that I was doing last year and for the past 2 years, the Feminist Hour. And in talking to Dr. Sylvia Solis, we were talking about experiences, and we were talking about what we kind of go through. And I told her something really interesting that I thought at the time was just kind of a throwaway line. And I said to her, I don't have a story. You don't have a story. I don't have a story of struggling, troubles, and tribulations. I really don't have that story. And she told me something interesting. She said, all of us have a story.
She's correct.
All of us have a story to tell. Yes, you may not have been working out in the fields. You may not have had to work 2 jobs, but we all have that story. And I always remember that because I thought, to me, it was just a throwaway line. Oh, I don't have a story, Sylvia, I don't. She's like, no, we all have a story. Mm-hmm. And we all do. And you say right now, I'm going to get a doctorate degree. What are my kids going to do? Well, they're going to have their own story to tell. They may have 3 master's degree and no doctorate, or maybe 2 whatever they go through, whatever they kind of aspire for. I have 2 daughters, one that's just starting college, wants to go into the health field. Another daughter who's at the University of Texas San Antonio. She's working towards architecture. And again, we see our children, and we see what they can do. We see the talents that they have, and we got to push them. But they're also going to make their own decisions in some of these things.
It's funny that you say that. And I applaud your daughters for going to school, because it's not easy to go from high school to college. One thing that I will stress upon when I told my students was take those extracurricular classes, those electives.
Yes.
Like, for example, you teach. You mentioned your daughter in healthcare. Take some you teach classes. You teach is not, it is designed for people wanting to go to become an educator in the STEM field, but it also teaches you soft skills, bedside manner, because when you go in a healthcare profession, you're teaching. You're going to go to a teaching hospital. You're going to have to provide instructions. You're going to have that patient that just doesn't understand what the medicine will do, the side effects. It's that teaching moment. And if you don't get that from college or from your professor of what that looks like, you're going to have a hard time and struggling, and you're not going to like your profession moving forward in healthcare. And that's something that I've noticed just in the teaching profession. So, it's just a matter of take those electives, those random art classes. I'm not an artist. I'm a doodler, but I'm not an artist. I wish I would have. But then this goes into, yes, we're middle age. I wish I could have.
Yes.
Why have that mentality? You don't want to be in your middle age going, man, I wish I could have done that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we want to do is we want to find a job where we are happy. We want to be happy to come to work every day. And I mentioned this at the very beginning of my first episode. I said, I love my job. I love what I do. I enjoy the profession. And I enjoy the people I work with. And when you have that combination, you look forward to coming to work every day. Not that we don't have stresses, not that we don't have difficulties, but I really enjoy the library profession.
Well, and it's funny because you're a rarity. You've been here for how long?
I started working at the university back in 1995, left to become a teacher, came back in 2003, then became a librarian in 2005. So I've been here 21 years.
See, and that's rare. Now you're kind of
people move
jobs. It takes about 2-3 years, and then you move on to the next job, you move on to the next phase, and that's the norm. But back in 20-30 years ago, the norm was to find a job
and stay there
until you're retired.
Yes.
And that's it. Well, that's the beauty of life, right? You just what's
up
next?
And go. Yeah,
let's just go. Let's just do it.
Yeah. So thank you so very much, Catherine, for joining us. Honestly, this was a wonderful conversation. I apologize for the technical issues.
Well, it's very rare that I find Michael and Kenny performing at the same component. But
if you go to YouTube, you probably find somebody that put them together.
Thank you for having me.
No, honestly, really appreciate the conversation. So we're going to end with one of my other favorite singers, Prince. 1999. I know, yes, we're going back over years, but we're gonna go with that. And again, have a wonderful weekend. Next week, I'm really excited about next week's show because we're gonna have one of my colleagues join me, and we're gonna nerd out. Honestly, I'm not gonna tell you, so you'll come back.
Yay!
We're just totally gonna geek out, my colleague and I. So hopefully you'll join us for that one. But have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so very much for listening and for being a part of our show. We really enjoy spending our Thursday mornings with you. If you know anybody that would like this type of content, this type of show, let them know about Library Talk and everything else. So until next time, have a wonderful weekend. There may be a bit of a change in the weather. Supposedly, at least here in the valley, the humidity is going to be different. So have a wonderful one, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, everybody.